Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have another installment of This Year in Perfume. Now, This Year in Perfume, the name will make a lot more sense once we get into the next episode, which I believe is going to be 1978. In 1978, I have a ton of perfumes from 1978 until the late 80s, early 90s. I have, a list this long of each year. So This Year in Perfume will make a lot more sense after this second episode. This is the second installment of this episode. We did 1974 until 1977 last time. So today we're going to go back in time and we're going to knock out 1966 until 1973. Again, I have some fragrances here. I don't have a ton from each year though. Especially the late 60s. I really don't have that many from the late 1960s, but the early 70s there are some, and what you will notice is that even though the list is relatively small, once we get into the late 70s, early 80s, you'll notice that each year I have more in each year than I do maybe in this entire time frame. There's some very important fragrances here that I'm going to talk to you guys about. So before we hop into the meat and potatoes here, I want to do a normal scent of the day. I don't know if you can see, I sprayed this about 5 minutes ago. There's a nice little sheen on my hand. And this is from Serge Lutens, and this is La Couche du Diable. And this is one of the newer releases from Serge Lutens. Me and Rich Mitch think alike in a lot of different facets. You'll notice we share a lot of the same tastes, and I was going to buy a bottle of this, but I actually did not want any of the new Serge Lutens bottles. I'm only going for the older bottles, and it's interesting. I heard him kind of have the same take on this. We're really long lost brothers in the fragrance community. So I got a decant because I did not want to own one of the new bottles, and this actually came out only in the new bottle, but look at the juice color. How's that for a Serge Lutens release? This is basically a labdanum, oud, amber, cinnamon, rose, musk fragrance is basically what I get. There's also some saffron. So this is a good fragrance, and you've heard a lot of people say things like, oh, this is the best release that Serge Lutens has put out since they, really started to hit the ground running with fragrances like Chergui and Ambre Sultan and Santal Majuscule and stuff like that. The newer offerings from Serge Lutens have been hit or miss, probably because Christopher Sheldrake's time is devoted towards, helping run Chanel with Olivier Polge. That being said, this is a good release, but for me, where I'm at in my journey, I would not buy a full bottle of this, and I'll tell you why. This has this same synthetic oud note that I talked about many a times before that all these big brands use. I'm not talking only about Serge Lutens. I'm not factoring them out. I'm not putting them in the highlight here of using synthetic oud. All the big houses do it. Creed's fragrance, which is a $500 for 100 ml, Royal Oud, as they call it, has almost no oud. I'm sure there is a drop of oud, so they can say there's oud in there, but that's a cedar-heavy fragrance. This has, to my nose, in the first half an hour to an hour, it has this vinegar-like accord that I don't really care for, and I'm not sure exactly where that comes from. There's supposed to be a note of tangerine and orange in the top as well. And maybe that, mixing with this synthetic oud molecule, and maybe there is real oud in here. I don't know. Don't sue me, Serge Lutens. I'm just a small but spirited channel. But anyways, I think the thing that I like about this fragrance more than the synthetic oud note that I'm getting is this labdanum. There's a beautiful labdanum note in this fragrance. If I were to make a top labdanum fragrances, there would obviously be Chanel's Le Lion, #1, hands down. Even Roja's $3,500 Haute Luxe, or Roja, whatever it's called, that he claims is his personal scent, and there's only 250 bottles a year. made every year, and he charges $3,500 for 100 ml. Even that, which is a big labdanum bomb, to me, can't compete with Chanel's Le Lion. That being said, I would put this up there with some of the better labdanum fragrances, but would I want 100 ml of this? Probably not, because this is supposed to be like this woody, resinous type thing. I think if I want to wear this type of fragrance with big amber and labdanum, I'd rather go for Le Lion, or I would rather go for Ambre Sultan. I mean, Serge Lutens Ambre Sultan is one of my favorite spicy ambers. This has an amber note, but it's really kind of more about that labdanum. There's also a beautiful rose note that I don't see many people talking about. I was kind of looking through some of the comments, and I'm not hearing very much talk about the rose. There's a beautiful rose note in this. If I ever do a top rose fragrances, I think this would have to be in there. But would I want 100 ml of this? No, probably not. So I'm glad I got to try it. Thank you, Moudasir, for the decant, my friend. If you look up Moudasir on Base Notes, you will see he has over 1,200 bottles, and he is a very trustworthy guy. I'm actually going through an issue right now where I paid someone for 3 fragrances, 2 Serge Lutens and an Amouage, a month ago, and they still haven't shipped it from Base Notes. So I should have stuck with my gut and only bought from Moudasir. I actually tried buying from somebody else, and it came back to bite me. So I'm dealing with that right now. But Moudasir, you can 100% trust. He is he's top notch. He does decants, he does full bottles. I even think he ships internationally. So shout out to Moudasir for this decant. And his stuff is always authentic, spot on. You don't have to worry about any of that with him. So really pleasure working with him. And he kind of lets me try these at a much better price point than going out and buying a full bottle. So 7 minutes of talking about my scent of the day. Let's get into the list. So this list is going to be from 1966 until 1973. That's going to be this year, this episode of This Year in Perfume, as I call it. So let's start with the older and work our way to the newer. So 1966, I only have one fragrance, and if you know the year 1966, you know what's coming. It is considered by many perfumers to be one of the best perfumes of all time. I don't personally agree. I think another fragrance that this perfumer has made is a better creation, but I can understand why it got so popular as it did in the mid-60s. This is Dior's Eau Sauvage EDT. Now, this was created by Edmund Rudnitska, who is widely considered amongst many perfume circles to be the greatest perfumer of all time. And what's interesting is if you look at his resume, he only has about 14 fragrances, something like that, 15. There's not very many fragrances that he has. And a couple that he has done that I like more than this, Rochas Femme would be one, but my all-time favorite Edmund Rudnitska creation is Eau de Hermes. Eau de Hermes is an absolute masterpiece to me. You know, especially in the older bottles. So if, you know, we'll talk about that some other time when we do a perfumer's portfolio video on Edmund Rudnitska. So I'm just looking now. It actually says he has 20 perfumes in the database. That's it, 20. I think Albert Morias did 20 perfumes last month. So you can kind of see it was a different world back then. Pierre Bourdon did an interview talking about Rudnitska, who was his mentor. And Pierre Bourdon said that he was he was even tougher than his father, and Pierre Bourdon's father was very hard to deal with. He never gave him a compliment on his perfumery, but Edmund Rudnitska was one of the most demanding, hardest people to work for. But he considered himself an artist at a time when, you know, perfumers were basically considered to be just, you know, people that made 1 cent, 2 penny imitations. You know, they didn't see what they were doing as art back then, and he saw himself as an artist. So this basically, to me, is a summer fragrance. And the reason that most perfumers consider this to be a fragrance that they will actually wear is that it is very light and airy and transparent, and it won't get in the way. If they wear this and they're making a creation, You know, that's the reason why a lot of perfumers don't actually wear perfume, is that it can get in the way of what they're trying to create on a day-to-day basis. This doesn't. This kind of sits closer to the skin. It's light, it's airy, it's, you know, you can kind of tell from the juice color in the bottle. You know, if you think of that citrus cologne idea, but the big thing with this is there was a note of hédione, which was supposed to theoretically attract women. Steve McQueen claims that this is why he was able to do so well with the ladies. It is true. I think that ladies just like a man that smells clean. They don't like stuff like this. Like, you know, this is not what most women are going to give you a compliment on, if that's what you care about. I don't give, you know, two craps about that. But, you know, if you do care about compliments, the clean, fresh, you know, that's what a lot of women say they want their men to smell like. So this is a fragrance that is very citrusy in the top. It has this lemon bergamot and rosemary and basil combo. And then you have this fruitiness with caraway. There's carnation. There's an old school carnation with rose in the mid and jasmine. So 3 big florals. And then you get the woods, which is sandalwood, oak moss, vetiver, musk, amber. So you know, when I wear this, I drench myself in this. I mean, I think it lasts on me about an hour or two, max, 2 hours max. I'll spray, I'll respray, I'll reapply. I mean, I'll carry a decant, I'll do all that. It just doesn't, it's not my kind of perfume, you know. I can appreciate it for what it is. And I have a vintage too, by the way. I have I don't know if you can see that. There's the batch code right now, 3M01. I think this is a 2003 bottle because of the packaging. The packaging was the older packaging with this, it almost had this dashboard brown, you know, type background with the Eau Sauvage in red, you know, with a yellow highlight around the square. If you look at old boxes, you'll see what I'm talking about. So I think this is a 2003 bottle. I think it's an older bottle too. So you have to like that citrusy, airy cologne style to really appreciate this. Okay, next we're gonna skip 1967 and 1968 because I don't have anything from either of those 2 years, believe it or not. And we're gonna go straight to 1969, and this is a banger. And this is, I really need a micro cloth towel here, all the fingerprints. This is basically this is a hype beast for me. If I was the hype of fragrance, this is the kind of thing I would hype, because number one, no one else is hyping it. No one, period. And number two, I think it's better done than 99% of the niche, you know, fragrances that are selling for $200, $300, $400, $500. I mean, end of story, period. It's from the house of Estee Lauder, and it was a women's fragrance release. This came out in 1969. This is Azuree. I think this is one of the best fragrances you can buy for your money. Pound for pound, dollar for dollar, wand for wand, whatever you want to be. Oh my God, it is so good. And the reason that it's so good to me is because it has this chiffre quality that I love. It has this mossy dirtiness, this forest floor, heavy oak moss, by the way, heavy. When Rich Mitch writes his book, The Oak Moss That I Know, this is what should go on the cover. I can't believe this was targeted towards women. It boggles the mind that women walked around in the late 60s, early 70s smelling like this. It absolutely boggles the mind. This was done by Bernard Chant, who also did pretty much all of the Aramis fragrances for men. And he made Aramis 4 years before he made Azuree. And the comparisons are very similar. I love Aramis. It's one of the best fragrances of all time. Maybe, you know, of that decade, of that time period, the best masculine. I think you can't argue with that. But this, I enjoy wearing even more because of what he did. It's such a beautiful composition. Listen to the notes. Aldehydes in the top. He was a master with aldehydes, by the way. I can't think of a single perfumer who used aldehydes better than Bernard Chant. I would love to hear your thoughts if you could tell me in the comments who you think is better at aldehydes than Bernard Chant. And then it goes into this. Listen to this. Bergamot, sage, artemisia, basil, gardenia at the top. That gardenia is completely swallowed, by the way, by leather, oak moss, vetiver, patchouli. The gardenia has no chance. So I've never smelled a gardenia in this, number one. Then you get into the mid, which is vetiver, geranium, orris root, jasmine, cyclamen, ylang ylang, rose. Now, the ylang ylang is also pretty buried. I don't get very much yellow flower out of this. I could see a dark rose maybe, you know, peeking its head out after a couple hours, but it's part of the overall composition. And the overall composition is heavy oak moss and heavy leather. This is a proper leather sheaf, and it is expertly done. This is the 2 fluid ounce bottle, and it says pure fragrance spray, but look at the color. I mean, look at the color of the juice. That is what a perfume should look like. And this wears so masculine. So masculine. It's unbelievable. And I think I got this bottle for like $65 or something because it was partially used. They're selling new ones now for $300-400. I would say if you're going to spend $500 on a Rouge of Dove, spend $200-300 on this. Seriously. You know, and obviously all of these fragrances are from my collection. I bought them with my own money. You don't see any advertisements on my channel. I'm not getting anything for you clicking a link and buying this. I'm just telling you, if you want a proper leather chiffre as a man, if you want to wear something that no one else is wearing and appreciate the art of perfumery, Azuree is my pick. I can't hype it anymore. I mean, literally, if you said pick one fragrance from your collection that should be hyped, that is not hyped, I would go instantly to this. And if you said, okay, pick something else, I would go elsewhere after this. But this deserves all of the praise and recognition that it gets. And you have to get a vintage with the gold that goes down. They have some bottles where this part right here is not gold, and that's the reformulated where they started to remove the oak moss. But these older bottles, my God, just smelling it from the cap, I just want to wear it. I don't even want to wear La Couche du Diable anymore. I just want to wear this, seriously. Fantastic fragrance. Okay, on to the year 1970, and this is a Guy Robert creation. And some people say this is his masterpiece. I think Amouage's Gold and Gold Man are his masterpieces, but some people will argue this. This is Equipage in the vintage bottle, with the amazing gear cap, the wheel in motion. Look at that, so 1970s with that brown. It also is on the top of the bottle. Look at the sprayer, giant sprayer. There's your batch code, whatever that means. Means nothing to me. I just know this is a vintage bottle. And this is a fragrance that I actually struggle with. And I don't mean struggle with as in I hate it, because I don't hate it. I like it and I appreciate it. I think it's very gentlemanly. But it's very old school. And you know me, I love old school fragrances. But this takes this aldehydic citrus, nutmeg, Brazilian rosewood thing and just takes it to the utmost vintage level. It says that the Hermes Equipage is a masculine perfume characterized by an ambiance that is both sober and virile. I don't know if I want my perfume to be described as virile, but there you go. It does also have this pine note that tends to peek its head through, and you know, it just reminds me of Scentland did a review where he said it reminds him of the outdoors, and I completely get what he's talking about, because it does have this outdoor, you know, you're in a forest, you smell some, you know, jasmine, lily of the valley. You smell the pine needles. You also get some fruit, some bergamot, orange at the top. But there's supposed to be this oak moss, vetiver, patchouli, tonka, musk, vanilla, amber base that, you know, this wears very transparent on me, even though it's the vintage. And, you know, it's very light sometimes. Sometimes I wear it and it feels too heavy. Sometimes I wear it, it feels too light. You know, it's very inconsistent, I've noticed. I think this changes with a lot with the weather. And you can see I've given it a fairly decent, you know, amount of wears. But I kept getting these comments from people, hey, Ramsey, if you love Bel Ami, also same house, you have to, you know, try Bel Ami Vetiver, which I obviously have and love. But then they were saying, okay, if you have Bel Ami Vetiver, you have to try what Jean-Claude Elena did with Equipage. So last week, this came in the mail. Equipage Geranium. And this is supposed to be like the newer version. And even though I don't like Equipage, I bought this because I wanted to do a comparison video for you guys, which I will do one day. But this came out in 2015, and this is supposed to be like the modernized version. So he took the spices that Equipage had, modernized it with a newer sandalwood note, with a big dose of geranium. And geranium can sometimes smell like rose. In fact, some perfumers will actually trick, you know, people into thinking that there's rose in a perfume when there's not. It's just geranium. So I am very interested to try this and kind of see the differences. I think I'm going to wait till it warms up a little bit because I have a lot of heavy fragrances that I want to wear. So that is Equipage. Okay. On to the year 1971. There are two fragrances in my collection from 1971. I like them both. I like one more than the other, obviously. Let's start with YSL. This is YSL Pour Homme, and this is the vintage bottle with the built-in sprayer, the red cap, and if you've ever seen the advertisement for this fragrance, it's amazing. It's basically Yves Saint Laurent naked, laying down, you know, in a centerfold type pose, posing for the ad. He went butt naked for this fragrance. And apparently this is what he wore. This was his signature scent. It is very, you know, these two are in the same category. Out of the two, I prefer the YSL. I think it has a little bit more, it's been a little bit more modernized, but it's also amped up with some other things that I like. It has a Brazilian rosewood note, which I love. And I feel like there's a little bit of like this amber, you know, there's this amberiness underneath the citruses, which I love. That's why I like Tiffany for men better than wearing Eau Sauvage. Eau Sauvage was very light. I like this, and I like Tiffany for men, which is also discontinued, just because they still retain that citrusness, that citrusy. Obviously, it's a citrus-heavy fragrance with herbs. You know, this has rosemary and marjoram and stuff like that, clary sage, and an old-school carnation, which I love in this fragrance. But it amps up a little bit of the stuff underneath, if you will. So there's some depth. You know, it's not just citruses, and it's not just this ethereal citrus that evaporates on you. So YSL Pour Homme, if you like the citrus style and you've never got your nose on this, check this out. There's also a version that came out 10 years later in the early 80s called YSL Pour Homme Haute Concentré, I believe, and it has a black cap. I hear that is actually even better because it's even more amped up, but I've never smelled it. I only have the original. They put this in the, you know, that masculine collection with the square bottle. Every time I say this, I try and draw a square for you guys. I don't know why. But they put it in the square bottle with the cap that's off-centered, and then they discontinued the whole range a year or two ago, I think. But YSL Pour Homme, if you're a citrus lover of old school, I like old school fragrances, but I like stuff like this much more. This is much more me than this, but I'm very glad to have this because it is discontinued and getting harder and harder and harder to find. Okay, and then my favorite fragrance from 1971, we're going to go to a Chanel. This is number 19. Again, another women's fragrance. This is the EDT. This is a refill. I don't have a cap, so what? And this fragrance, what can I say about this fragrance? This was a tester too, by the way. This fragrance is, if you're a green fragrance lover, you know, this is absolutely a revelation. I love the galbanum in this. There's this cool galbanum that mixes with the earthiness underneath. You know, it is a Chypre, so these two are brother and sister. This is brother for sure, or maybe, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but this is brother and sister, and you know, this is this Chypre, but instead of being all leather and earthiness like Azuree, this starts out with this greenness, this galbanum, this floral. There's this note of hyacinth, which normally hyacinth can really take over a composition. It's a heavy flower. This beautiful Neroli bergamot in the top, and then the star of the show, the galbanum, obviously starts blending with this lovely powdery orris root, iris, rose, lily of the valley, and then there's this, look, the masculine notes in the base get me every time with these 70s fragrances. There's oak moss, vetiver, leather, cedar, musk, sandalwood. That is a masculine base. And again, God bless the women of the 1970s. This is a power, you know, if you're a woman in a power suit, I would tell you to wear either of these. I love both of these so much as far as Chypres go from the late 60s, early 70s. Amazing perfumery. If you're a man that only wears fragrances targeted to men, I'm telling you, you're missing out. Just because these were targeted towards women, do not sell these short. You know, you're missing half the puzzle. You're only looking at one half. There's a whole other half of perfumery for you to explore. If you're a man and you've never smelled number 19, go get your nose on this. If you can find a vintage, an older bottle, try to do so. And even if you can find one from the 70s, they used to use Iranian galbanum, which was supposedly the most rare and hardest to find, you know, the best galbanum on earth. But when the Iran and Iraq war started, they couldn't source the material anymore, and so they had to kind of find a new galbanum supplier, if you will. I don't think this bottle's old enough to have Iranian galbanum in it, but, you know, it is, it's amazing. There's also this soapiness that tends to come in later on, that mixes with the green, mossy, dirty, you know, it's a Chypre. Chypres are supposed to have this mossy, you know, forest floor type feel, and this mixes it with the green notes. It's my favorite green fragrance, and very rightly so. I can't think of a green fragrance that would be able to dethrone this. And I love wearing this. I usually wear it in spring and summer, but you can wear this anytime. It's beautiful. So, number 19. Okay, now on to the year 1972. Back to a Edmund Rudnitska creation and another Chypre. You can see Chypres were very popular. This is a floral Chypre, and this is the houndstooth bottle. This is called Diorella. Can you see that? Diorella. So this is an older bottle, obviously, the houndstooth bottle. Look at the sticker on the bottom. Just awesome, too. I don't know if you can see that. It says, keep away from heat or flame. Very nice. Old school Dior. Again, an Edmund Rudnitska. Oh, this is an amazing Chypre. Again, I only have a little bit left, as you can see. Just a little corner of this little 2-ounce bottle. But this is, you know, Edmund Rudnitska played with the idea of peach in a Chypre with Rochas Femme from the 1940s. This uses that peach note, but amps up the florals. There's this beautiful jasmine, Moroccan jasmine, Fragrantica says. And then there's this honeysuckle note that mixes with this melon in the top, this juicy melon that goes along with the green. It's a little bit green in the top, but it's floral. It has bergamot. It has Sicilian lemon. There's an old school carnation note, which is a very masculine note in traditional perfumery. And then it mixes with this oak moss, vetiver, patchouli, musk in the base. Beautiful Chypre. You know, these older bottles are just time capsules. They're just such gems. And if you're a Chypre lover, I just gave you 3 Chypres to hunt down that are feminine targeted fragrances. But as a man, do not sell these short. You know, this is classic French perfumery right here. And, you know, you're basically looking at the work of one of the best perfumers to ever live. There's this hauntingly beautiful floral note that comes in the mid of this fragrance. It's so good. It's so good for a Chypre. I love wearing this in the summertime as well. And then a fragrance that I have a hard time recommending because there's all these different distributors. There must have been 10 distributors for this fragrance. This is Pierre Cardin Pour Monsieur. This came out in 1972 as well. This is like the godfather of Givenchy's Gentleman from 1974. Oh, it's so good. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this presentation, by the way. Okay, so you make of that what you will. And then there's the look at the sprayer. Look at that. How old school is that? And I actually taped, this was coming off, so I taped it so it would stay because I wanted to show you the distributor of this particular version is in France. Whenever I look on Fragrantica, every time I see one of these bottles, the distributor is always like in New Jersey or Canada, or I haven't been able to find another French distributor. This says Société Nouvelle de Distribution des Parfums Internationaux, 74 Rue de Arciel, 94578, Rungis, France. No clue. But there's the bottom. So I'm not sure how you would hunt down a bottle of this if you wanted this version. I got extremely lucky. This guy's uncle died or something. He didn't know what he had, and he sold me this for like $10, along with that Russian leather I showed in my first impressions video of I did a Russian leather video recently, and I talked about the Del Oro Russian leather that I had when I did my comparison between Roja's Great Britain and Chanel's Cuir de Russie. And so, anyways, I only say that because I got a steal, an absolute steal on these. And this is such a great fragrance. It's so good. I love the patchouli in this. This is one of my favorite patchouli fragrances, but it mixes with this old school lavender and sandalwood. There's a leather note in here. Old school carnation. Oh, it's so good. As far as masculine fragrances go, pre-1974, this is what I would be rocking if I was alive in the early 70s. Now, 1974 comes around, I'm wearing Givenchy Gentleman. That's my jam. But early 1970s, this would be for me. And then we're gonna go to 1973. Now we have 3 more in this year, and we're gonna start with a very special fragrance to me. It's a special fragrance in the fragrance community, anyways, for what it did. But to me personally, it's also a very special fragrance because this is my father's signature scent, even to this day. This is Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. This is a vintage splash. You can tell it's a vintage by the raised R, and you can still find these for cheap. Don't be scared to buy a splash bottle. A lot of people don't like buying a splash because they like to spray their fragrances. Oh my God. And, you know, it just takes me back to being a kid again, honestly. But, just get yourself some decants from Amazon. You can get like, 8 of them for $10 or something. Just decant this, get some funnels, get some, little, those little things that you can put in here, and it'll actually suck the liquid out, and you can, like you used to use in a beaker in high school class, in science class in high school, and just decant this into sprayers and spray away. If you can get this for half the price of one with the spray, so what? Cherish these deals while you can get them. And I've seen these on eBay for cheap, these vintage bottles. I think I paid $60 for this, and it's one of the best $60 you could spend in perfumery. And this is Paco Rabanne Parfums SA, bottle made in France. This is one of the greatest aromatic fougères of all time. This is the father of Azuree Pour Homme. And there's this beautiful rosemary with Brazilian rosewood here. And of course, tonka. You need tonka beans. You need coumarin in a fougère. But what gets me in this version versus the newer formulas, and my father has oh man, it got on my hands. Oh, I'm going to smell like Paco Rabanne Pour Homme for a day now. But what gets me in this formula versus the newer ones is this one has this animalic honey note that, oh man, it's so good. Even on my hands. Oh God. It has this animalic honey note that comes through after about an hour and a half, that you just do not get that animalic honey. It just makes the fragrance. It's so, so good. Hang on, let me not waste this juice. It's so rich. Such a good fragrance. Reading the Fragrantica comments on this are hilarious, because some people are like, this smells of a man that has nothing to live for. This smells like a man who is waiting to die. These people don't understand what old perfumery was all about. They are living in a day where they're wearing Sauvage, Bleu de Chanel. If you're young and you're wearing those fragrances, that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Those are great starter fragrances. But those type of fragrances have absolutely nothing on this. It's so good. If you can find a vintage bottle of this and you're a fragrance connoisseur, get it. This was made by the way, I should mention, this was made by Jean Martel, who also made Jules by Dior. He made Jules 7 years after Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. So you talk about two monster creations. Jules and Paco Rabanne Pour Homme are two of my favorites. And if you really compare the two, you can see the similarity. So, okay, next we're going to go to the house of Aramis. So we're back to our good friend Bernard Chant from previously. But this time we're forward a couple years. This is 1973. This is Aramis 900. And this is one of the greatest masculine rose fragrances that you can buy. Oh, it's so good. It's also animalic because it has civet. And it has the good civet, not the newer synthetic civet. I don't know if it's real or not, obviously, but this is an older bottle, and you can see how they typed it out. It was Aramis 900 Herbal Cologne Spray, back before they did EDT, EDP, Extrait, EDP Intense, Parfum. They just made a cologne spray and bam, Men didn't wear perfume back in the day. They wore cologne. And so this is a tester that I bought, and I got an absolute steal on this. Sometimes if you find, if you're bidding on something on eBay, sometimes you'll notice like this Equipage Geranium is a great example of this. This was a, specific time, a bid, best bidder wins kind of thing on eBay. And I bid on it. I bid the lowest amount that they allowed me to bid, and I got this for $55. No one else bid on it. I was the only bidder. I got 100 ml that has just a little bit used for, you know, a third of what they're going for new. And no one bid against me. So I got a steal. You know, sometimes that happens. So keep that in mind. If you're looking around on eBay, don't be scared to put a lowball bid in, especially for these older fragrances. Sometimes there's no interest. But Aramis 900, if you want a masculine rose, I don't know if it can be done better than this. Maybe the contender in my mind, I'll do a my favorite rose fragrances one day, a video. The contender to this, in my mind, would be Azuree's Ace Tour from the late 80s. This is, you know, 15 years before Ace Tour, maybe even more. So, you know, this is, if Ace Tour, even if you said that's a better fragrance, it was heavily inspired by this, no doubt. If you like fragrances like this, but you want something newer, more modern, you know, you can try Amouage's Lyric Man. That's a beautiful masculine rose. You can try Azuree's Ace Tour, but if you can find this bottle, get it. Because the new bottles, even though they're good, they don't have the oak moss and civet that these older bottles have, and it just mixes with that rose. There's vetiver, sandalwood, amber. There's this orris root. And then there's the aldehydes in the top, which Bernard Chant was such a master of using. My God. So good. And then we're going to end with the Creed. I know Creed gets a lot of crap because of the fake story that they put out about, you know, being around since 1778 or whatever it was. And rightly so. They deserve all of the crap that they're getting now. Now that the truth is kind of coming out. There was a book written about it called The Ghost Perfumer. Check that out. But this is a fragrance that actually came out in 1973. So anytime you see these gray caps, these were EDTs that Creed did. And so this came out, okay, so I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's the batch code right there. And Creed always puts the year. So this is C1015P01. So that 15P01 means this is a 2015 bottle. They discontinued this fragrance in 2016, I believe, or 17. This is Acier Aluminum. Acier Aluminum. And this is one of my favorite Creed fragrances. All of these gray cap, these EDTs, are such great fragrances. The bang for the buck back then was amazing. And this fragrance is amazing as well. My wife says it smells like potpourri. I guess you have to like that potpourri smell. I don't get potpourri as much as she does. But it says, here's the note from the brand. This is 1973, by the way. I wonder who made this. I would love to know, because no one's credited for it. Well, it says James Henry Creed, but we know that's not true. Creed's Acier Aluminum fragrance gives every man the chance to feel like a knight in shining armor. This fruity chiffre fragrance, again, chiffre, was inspired by the chainmail armor worn by medieval knights. Acier is French for steel, and the fragrance exemplifies traditional masculine strength. So, very simple composition. Bergamot in the top, spices and fruity notes in the mid, ambergris and vanilla in the base. And the fruity notes, some people say you get a banana note, and I completely see what they're talking about. And you would say, why do I want to smell like banana? Trust me, as far as compositions go that are unique, you know, this is a niche fragrance. This is what Creed should be charging big money for. You know, some of the other stuff they put out, some's good, some's bad. I am a fan of some Creed fragrances. As you can see, I have a lot of Creeds. But this is one of my favorites that no one talks about. It has this beautiful amber feel. It almost feels like a masculine Shalimar. I said Venezia was their take in the 80s of Shalimar, like a Creed's take with great ingredients and you know, beautiful ambergris, real Mysore sandalwood is what that smells like to me. But Acier aluminum deserves more talk, you know. It's so good. It is just, you know, it's sad that this is what Creed used to make, and now they're putting out stuff like Viking Cologne. It's just sad. So I wanted to end with one of my favorites. As you can see, this is it. You know, once I use this up, I'm not paying $500 for another bottle of this. That's it. It's done. But put this on your radar if you find a partial. If you get a good deal, you know, if you just need to get a decant, this is definitely one to try. It smells like plaid coats and couches, and it smells like Tom Selleck mustaches, and it smells like sex in a bottle. It's lovely. Check this out. I appreciate you guys putting up with a This Year in Perfume that is extended. The next one will probably be a 1 year This Year in Perfume, so it'll start to make more sense. But thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If there's some fragrances from this era, 1966 to 1973, that I missed. And we'll talk soon. Cheers. Peace.